All right, it's Thursday night, and we are live. This is a show called Thursday Night Live. Let's see if we can do this correctly. That right there is Penelope Miller, who you know. And we got three special guests tonight. We're going to be talking about Aftercare. Up top with us is Kristin Werner. Hello, Kristin. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good. Down below, we've got Jen Roytz. Jen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. And we've got Sarah Coleman. Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
All right. So this show tonight is dedicated to Aftercare. We've all heard about Aftercare. We know that that's what horses do once they're done racing. But what exactly do they do, and what are the possibilities for them? Our guests tonight are going to tell us all about it. The various types of second careers, horses who don't move into second careers. What do they do once they're retired? We're going to find out about that. We're also going to talk about coronavirus. How has coronavirus been impacting the world of Aftercare? There's a lot to dig into. Penelope, let me just toss to you real quick. I know you're excited for tonight's show.
I am. I have been an absolute lover of thoroughbreds and riding horses, as well as racehorses my entire life. And so the ability to talk about, how wonderfully adept they are at whatever job you want them to do is such an exciting opportunity, because whether you want like a trail horse or a high-level sport horse or anything in between, like off-the-track thoroughbreds can work cattle. They can do barrel racing. They're inventors. They're hunters. They're amazing kids ponies. That's what I grew up riding. Like, they can do almost anything in addition to being these amazing athletes that we see on the racetrack. So this is such a fun opportunity. I'm so glad you guys could join us. Let's kick this off, Jano.
Let's kick it off. I'm going to do some intros. I'm going to give a little bit of bio for each, so you know who we're talking to here. We're going to start up top with Kristin. Kristin serves as senior counsel for the Jockey Club, an organization that we know pretty well, Penelope, since we also work for the Jockey Club.
I mean, I keep my hair around their signature colors, so I know.
The pants line for that.
In addition to legal work, though, Kristin wears a lot of hats. She's involved with the Jockey Club's industry initiatives related to the welfare and safety of the racehorse and Aftercare, including the Equine Injury Database, the Thoroughbred Incentive Program, also called TIP, and the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance. So that's Kristin. As we go down below, Jen is the executive director of the Retired Racehorse Project. They put on a little show you might have heard of called the Thoroughbred Makeover. They also publish Off Track Thoroughbred magazine, and they put on Off Track Thoroughbred retraining clinics throughout the year. Jen also writes about Aftercare and owns Top Line Communications with Sarah. So Sarah is the Public and Community Relations Director for New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program. She owns an OTTB herself that she adopted from New Vocations named Chisholm. Chisholm trained under Todd Pletcher, and Sarah also writes and edits for multiple equine and farming magazines and websites. So as you can probably tell based on those intros, the ladies on this stream do different things in the world of Aftercare. So we'll dig a little bit into defining what Aftercare is and what they do. Let's start with Kristin. Kristin, tell us in your mind, what is Aftercare and how do you see your role within the Aftercare world?
Sure. So I think Aftercare is, part of the racing industry. And that's what we're really trying to do with a lot of our programs is remind racing folks and people who are getting horses afterwards that Aftercare is just another part of racing, just like breeding, just like horses at the track. So every thoroughbred that comes off the track has the potential to go on to a second career. Sometimes that second career might be a pasture pet for someone or a companion horse for another, but they all have the opportunity or should have the opportunity to do that. As far as my role in it, so a lot of the Jockey Club's Aftercare initiatives began in about 2009, with TIP probably being the biggest one that we've done, which started in 2012. And so I coordinate that program, and it has grown immensely since we started it. And now we have horse shows. We're going to have 2 horse shows this year with some awards. So we're really focusing at this point with TIP on recognizing and rewarding horses that are already retired and already onto their second career. The Jockey Club also supports the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, which is focused on accrediting and inspecting and granting money to organizations like Vocations that provide that aftercare for horses immediately coming off the track. So the retraining, the rehab, retirement, sanctuary, and things like that.
Let's kick it around to Jen. How about you? What does aftercare mean to you? And talk about some of what you do.
To me, aftercare is just, everything that goes into these horses after racing. The average thoroughbred racehorse retires when they're around 5 years old. A lot of them are able to run much longer than that, and some of them retire much earlier than that, like Chisholm, Sarah's horse did. But there's so much life that they have left and so much they have left to give. So aftercare is really, finding the right role for them. For the retired racehorse project's part in aftercare, aftercare is a cycle just like any other aspect of the thoroughbred industry, whether it's, the racing side, the breeding side, the sales side. There's kind of like a business within the business, and it's like that in any industry. And so aftercare is like that too. So you need people to retrain those horses and kind of take them from the racetrack into transition onto that next career. You need people who want those horses, who use them in their next career. And then, that's a different sector of the equine industry than maybe those who use them 10 or 15 years down the road, when maybe it's like a different subset of the equestrian world that's learning how to ride in an older thoroughbred that's been doing the horse show thing or the riding lesson thing for a long time is perfect for them. What RRP does in that cycle is we try to create demand in the equestrian world for thoroughbreds. With all the thoroughbreds retiring off of the track every year, I'd say, estimates say between 10 and 12,000 might retire in a given year. So you need a market of equestrians wanting to take those on as riding horses. And they have so many different options out there as far as different types of horses and breeds and all that. So we work hard to create reasons for people to want thoroughbreds, but we also work really hard to make sure people have the right tools to transition those horses, so they know how to retrain them or where to get professional help to retrain them. So that's why we created the Thoroughbred Makeover about 5 years ago, to give people more reasons to want to take on those horses. And then we also do the clinics, like you mentioned, around the country, teaching people how to put those first rides on a thoroughbred off of the track, or the first few rides on a horse that they might get from an aftercare facility like a New Vocations, or someone privately who's maybe transitioning from the track to a new career. So we kind of serve that purpose, and then also help them see all the opportunities they have for those thoroughbreds beyond racing. There's a ton of horse shows in the TIP program. New Vocations puts on an awesome show. A lot of other thoroughbred specific horse shows, or horse shows with thoroughbred specific classes and prize money. So we just try to get all that information out there to get people excited about it and wanting to pick a thoroughbred instead of a different horse for the equestrian world.
We'll dig into those shows, actually, kind of the status of all those shows, because people want to know what's going on with everything that's happening in the world. Will those shows go on? If so, when and how do they get involved? And for a lot of our viewers, they were actually familiar with the RRP and Thoroughbred Makeover, because we do a regular feature with Rosie Napravnik, in which she features some of the horses that she's working with, former racehorses that are now on track to be at the makeover. One of them last year was Stanimo, who did really well. That's pretty cool, right? And we have racing people taking horses from the track and doing cool things.
She's such a good ambassador for off-track thoroughbreds. She does a lot of work with New Vocations, helping them get a facility going in Louisiana that I'm sure Sarah can speak to. She's on the RRP board, and she's competed at the makeover and done very well. And she's a friend of mine, and I've gotten to see firsthand kind of the transition that she has made from racing to her second career, and how that infuses how she appreciates the psychological aspect that these horses go through, because they obviously go through such a physical transformation, but it's also mental. It's a professional athlete taking a total left turn in their career, and they go through a lot in that first year trying to figure out what their new purpose is. And she can appreciate that in a very unique way. She's fantastic.
Sarah, since we've transitioned to you here, but I want to say that I saw something come across social media earlier today. New Vocations had a pretty big month in April. Tell us about that and what the latest is and why April was such a big month for you.
Sure. So just a little bit of background about New Vocations. We are actually the nation's oldest and largest racehorse adoption program. So we service both thoroughbred and standardbred retired racehorses. We're about 70% thoroughbred, I would guess, mostly just because there are many more thoroughbreds racing than standardbreds, and they retire significantly earlier, like Jen had mentioned. We actually help about 500 horses a year, which is an astronomical number when you think about it. And we've helped 7,000 horses since we began in 1992. We actually have, like Jen had mentioned, we have multiple facilities, which is how we're able to help that many horses. We actually started in Ohio, a little town called Laura, Ohio. So we have facilities in Ohio, Louisiana, New York, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. Louisiana was the most recent one that we opened. It hasn't even been open a year, but they're doing a wonderful job down there. I keep wanting to go visit. I love New Orleans, so I keep trying to convince my boss I need to go down and check it out. But we adopted out 60 horses this month. And to be very, very honest, we were all shocked. That's a ton of horses for us, but especially in the face of COVID, we were pretty anxious. I think everybody's pretty anxious. And we were really surprised. We had to kind of, like Jen had said, make a left-hand turn. We have just come on board with Horse Country Tours, and we were supposed to launch in April. So we were all excited. We have our facility done. We're like ready to give these tours in Lexington. And of course, then everybody was put on lockdown. So what we began is every Monday through Saturday at noon, we do a meet and greet with an adoptable horse. So it's not always in Lexington. Sometimes it's at our other facilities, but it's just a little behind the scenes peek with the trainer. They bring the horse out. The horse might be working under saddle in a field, being lunged. And they talk a little bit about that horse. So, and that's been kind of like this show, they're able to ask questions about the horse. It's very much live, real time. And that's been really fun. People are really excited to see that. So we also, every Wednesday, we do a tour. It is nowhere near, unfortunately, as beautiful as it is in person, unfortunately, but we do try to make sure that people can see our Lexington facility. We did do a little video. If you guys are on our website or our social media, we did a little video about our 60th horse getting adopted out and loading onto a trailer to go to his new home. And all of our staff, our Lexington staff, was standing in our empty stalls, and they were cheering the horse on the way out. So it was very sweet. It's very sweet. And it was very surprising. Like I had mentioned, we actually had 225 applications, which for our applications girl is astronomical. She had to call vets and farriers and references and boarding barns, but she's done an amazing job keeping up with it. And we're very, very excited. And we're looking forward to have some more horses coming in as well.
Sarah, I'm going to watch that directly after this, and I'm going to cry. And I'm like super excited about it.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Very good. Penelope, do you have any follow-ups? I mean, obviously, we've kind of gotten a sense for the range of different possibilities after a racing career. I know you've had horses and you've worked with retired racehorses, right? So
I have. I've been very lucky because I've worked on thoroughbred farms that are foaling where horses begin their career, and because a lot of the horses on the farm were either belonging to our family or to clients. I actually helped retrain a lot of the ones that were geldings or not, didn't want to be bred, stuff like that. And I mean, I can personally speak to these horses having the biggest desire to do a job and do it well. Yeah. Once a thoroughbred figures out what you're asking him or her to do, they will give you their whole heart and try their very, very hardest. So with, Kristin, Jen, Sarah, you guys, what you're doing is you're basically not just giving these horses a safety, like a landing space, but you're also giving them what they crave, which is, a job and a partnership. And they really are the most wonderful horses. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about this. I can't even tell you.
Well, let's dig into the question of coronavirus, and I don't know the exact connection between some of what you're seeing and coronavirus. If it happens to be, hey, it's just a coincidence, maybe, or maybe you're looking for trends right now. Kristin, let's start with you. I mean, what are you seeing? Is there increased demand for horses that would be racing right now that their owners are potentially looking to retire and get into the aftercare system?
So we haven't really heard of a huge influx of horses. Here and there's been a few people or locations that have indicated maybe, oh, we're going to need to move these horses off the track. But as New Vocations evidence is one example, we've got lots of people who now, I guess, have free time and think it's the perfect time to adopt a horse and restart it because maybe they're home or they have some more time or whatever their reasons is. And that's actually great, because if it does come to the point in a couple of months where horses do need to be placed, our hope is that there'll be some empty stalls. And then it won't be as hard to get those horses into new spots. Where we're seeing a lot of impact is on our horse shows. We've had to pretty much mass cancel every show in April. We moved off the calendar. So far, the first 2 weeks of May, they're off the calendar. And so people are having to adjust for, are they still able to ride their horse? What else can they do? Some of them have gone to online horse shows. And actually, I've been shocked. Some of these large horse show organizations who run these massive events are running these online horse shows and doing a really great job. So TIP has had to adjust a little bit, and we've added some awards for people that are doing those online horse shows to kind of give them an extra incentive to take out their thoroughbred and maybe keep trying to do stuff with them, even if it means they're doing it from their home or their barn instead of at a show. The other part we're trying to encourage people to do is our recreational riding program. So we do kind of an hours in the saddle program. So you can go ride your horse, record your hours, and we give you cool stuff, hats and cups and picture frames and stuff like that. So now's the perfect time to be going and logging those hours with your horse. So that's sort of how we've been affected. It's definitely been a very different couple of months, but TIP is continuing, and our thoroughbred folks seem to be still out there riding their horses, which is great.
I have a really quick question.
Yeah.
What's the virtual horse show?
So there's a couple different options. There actually have been online dressage shows for a long time. So essentially what you do is you set your camera up at C. For those who don't know dressage, you have letters around a ring and C's at one end. And you do your dressage test and you send the video in and someone judges it for you. And then you get your score, and then they place them based on your score and the test that you were doing. What I have seen new this year that I have never seen before is people are also doing the same thing with hunter and jumper jumping courses. So the horse show sets up a jump course, says, here's the course you have to jump, and people set it up at their home arena, video it, and then they actually are judging it different than they would judge a normal horse show, because they're looking at, how the person's form looks, the horse's approach to the jump, how well they jump, overall impression. So not just giving points for how fast the people go around the jumps like it might be at a regular horse show. So it's interesting. We ask for rules because there do have to be rules for all of this. And people are very, horse welfare is probably the number one thing that we look for and that a lot of these shows are looking for. You don't want people out there just going around and around and around with their horses and stuff. So it's been very interesting. The online dressage I was familiar with, but some of these new things, I'm like, man, you guys are creative that you're able to coordinate all of this and get people to help you with it. And I mean, some of them have had 150, 200 entries. I mean, it's been huge. So yeah.
I smell a YouTube rabbit hole I'm going down.
Yeah, I can send you some links. A lot of them are on the Facebook pages. The comments.
Very cool. Sarah, quick question for you. You've seen this spike in adoptions. I'm sure there are people sort of on the other side of this fence where maybe they've adopted before. Maybe you're thinking about, hey, what do I do now? I've got this extra expense here. I don't have the same income I have. Can I return an adopted horse? My funds are limited. Is there any assistance available? What can you say about that portion of it?
Sure. And that's a really great question. So to kind of recap, New Vocations focuses on adoption. So the horses that come into our program either have to be sound when they retire from racing, or they have a good chance of becoming sound once we do some rehabilitation on them. So any horse that we take in, we are hoping will be able to have some format of ridden career. So they do pretty much everything Kristin mentioned they do. There's pleasure horses, there's hunters, there's jumpers, there's dressage horses, there's, pasture potatoes where people just want to love on them. But when a horse leaves New Vocations program, it is always a New Vocations horse. It is a New Vocations graduate. We do actually allow our horses to be sold once they have been owned by their new owner for 12 months. All that we do is we ask that we are informed of where the horse has gone and its new owner. And we do that specifically for exactly what you had said. We always want to be a safety net for our horses. So if someone ends up in financial straits, medical issues, anything for which they're concerned about being able to pay for their horse and care for it well, not just throw it in a field, we always take our horses back. So what we usually say is if it's a graduate of our program, meaning it's out of that 12-year contract, we try to help that person rehome the horse from where the horse is. If it's an immediate need, they financially absolutely cannot afford it, we take the horse back into one of our training facilities, and it takes us all there until we can rehome it. Ideally, we would like to home the horse from where it's located for a couple different reasons. One, it's less stress on the horse to have to ship, not have to ship all over potentially and get used to new routines. And two, we really want to highlight, that our stalls at our training facilities are for horses retiring directly from the track. But we do always take our horses back. We very much feel that we're very proud of our program, and we want to make sure that they know that horse can always come back if needed.
Right. And Jen, you've been around this game for a while. You could probably speak to the last economic downturn and how that affected the aftercare world. Give us some historical perspective and kind of, take us from there to where we are now and what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Dan. I've heard more and more people kind of comparing this to, I'd say the last true economic downturn was in 2008. And, you saw it hit the economy, and then if you kind of factor in how long a horse takes to gestate in a mare, you breed the horse, about a year later, a little less, you have a newborn, and then a lot of people might choose to sell those horses. So it kind of it has a delayed effect sometimes on the horse industry to see how it will truly have a long-term impact. Obviously, it's having a short-term impact now, but I think people are still speculating quite a bit on what the long-term impact is going to be for the industry as a whole, as well as the various sectors, sales side, the racing side, breeding and stud fees. And so we're looking at that with aftercare too. Will people, the longer they're not able to race their horses, will they decide to retire them prematurely? We've seen, like Kristin said, we've seen pockets of that throughout the country, but it's fantastic that we're not seeing that widespread. And the fact that New Vocations and other organizations are able to still adopt horses as another saving grace for this situation. But you never know, the longer they're not able to produce an income. You typically start seeing that at the lower levels in racing. People who run at the lower claiming levels, they might be majority owner trainer kind of situations where they're not getting purse income and day rates and things like that. They can't carry those horses without racing for months and months. So we're trying to strategize for that from the Retired Racehorse Project side. Obviously, I said we do a lot to try to increase demand. So a few things we're doing short term is we have a classified section on our website where people can post horses for sale. It can be a horse coming off the track. It can be a horse that is retired and in the first year of showing. It can be a thoroughbred that's been showing for 20 years and it's ready for a slower pace of life, or to teach a new kid how to go to horse shows. We have made the classifieds free and open to the public, so anyone can post their horses. And we've also made a template contract free. So I think everyone on here can agree it's always in the horse's best interest to be rehomed with a contract. It protects the horse, obviously. It protects the buyer, it protects the seller. Even if the horse is selling for $1 where no money is changing hands, just having a written contract stating what that horse's intended purpose is, what it is and is not allowed to go on to do, where it's going, just having a record of that is very important. So we made a contract available for anyone to download and use. And then we've tried to transition as much as we can to online initiatives. So this time of year, typically we're doing demonstrations and off-track thoroughbred retraining clinics around the country where we get horses that are fresh off of the track, and riders who are professionals at the highest level of whatever their sport is, whether it's, Olympians who compete in the eventing world or reining trainers, whoever, and we pair them up and show the audience how those trainers approach the first ride on an off-track thoroughbred. We can't do those right now. So instead, we're doing a lot more online webinars, stuff like this. We're also doing a lot of these things we call 5-minute clinics, where it's professional trainers giving a 5-minute mini clinic online, tackling a single simple issue that's common with thoroughbreds. Let's say they come off the track and they have a hard time changing leads. When they're racing, they're on their right lead when they're on the straightaways, and then they switch to their left lead on the turn, and then back to the right lead when they're on the next straightaway. And sometimes people have a hard time asking for that at a slower pace. So we just did a mini clinic on how to teach them to do that properly. So we're trying to do that, and then trying to just forecast for the long term as much as we can, as much as any of us can. Like, we're trying to plan 3 months from now, and everything changes every 5 minutes.
Penelope, do you have any follow-ups to any of that?
Just for Jen, the thing about the flying lead changes, it makes me so happy to hear you talk about that, because so many things, and I think people who don't know horse racing very well don't realize that, but so many of the things that horses learn on the racetrack can translate really, really easily to the riding ring. No matter what discipline you're doing, it's like what you're doing is you're getting a horse that speaks this language, and you have to get them to speak another language. They already have the vocabulary, they just don't know how to apply it in a new setting. So it's not that they can't or won't change leads, it's just they're used to somebody asking them in a completely different way. So being able to watch a 5-minute clinic and have that aha moment of, oh, he thinks I'm asking him for this, when he's used to being asked this way, it's just so helpful.
Yeah, it's funny, you think about the things that should be obvious, but sometimes they're not, which is the story of my life every day. On the racetrack, for example, when do you ever see a racehorse being ridden where the jockey is using its legs on the side of the horse? You never see that. You rarely see it in the morning during training hours. They ride very short because they are going at a high speed and they're high intensity, so they need that leverage to be able to control the front and back movement of the horse. But then in the horse show world, it's just as important to control the lateral movement side to side. So it's just teaching them how to connect and communicate with you differently, not just through your hands, but through your seat and your weight and your legs. And it's really cool to listen to. A lot of times we'll have an English rider, a Western rider, and then a Liberty trainer, someone who does a lot of training with the horse without a bridle or saddle or anything, and a lot of times without even getting on them. And the three of them can teach a horse the same things, but in totally different ways. And so it's neat to kind of get all those different perspectives. There's so many right ways to do something sometimes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Real quickly, before we go anywhere else, we do have some comments going on in the video. So Adam Reckamp says, "What's up, everybody?" Hi, Carrie. Colleen Young says that she had an off-track horse who was an amazing jumper, and I love hearing that. Your dad says hi, Dan.
Hi, Pops.
Chris Brown is rooting for my friend Spear at Oakland this weekend. And Wendy Bowie, one of my favorite photographers out there, says that she wants to congratulate New Vocations and Sarah Coleman on rehoming horses. Yes, that is awesome. And if you guys don't follow Wendy, click on her Facebook. She's talking on this video right here. She does an amazing series of photographs, and a lot of them are of retired racehorses, and the lighting's super cool and dramatic, and they're great.
She's the best. She's very, very good to New Vocations at our Lexington facility in particular. We love them. Love them, love them. Penelope, I was thinking really quickly, when I give tours, I do a lot of tours to 4-H groups, FFA, Pony Kid camps. And the one question we always get is, what's the hardest thing that you have to teach a retired racehorse? And I work pretty closely with Leandra Cooper, who's our facility director and head trainer in Lexington. And it's always been teaching them turnout. Like, it's not necessarily they already know how to have a job. You know, they work really well. They have good work ethic, clearly. You know, but some of these, you know, old campaigners we get in, they might not have been out in potentially years. You know, they're in a stall, they work. So we turn them out. We have 4 basically Class I round pens, large round pens. We turn them out there. Once they get used there, they kind of graduate into these bigger paddocks. But I have never had a young horse until I adopted my horse from New Vocations. And it was really like they had reverted to little kid, like no social skills. Like, he got turned out and he ran up to all these horses at like 100, you know, and they're like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? So it's really kind of interesting. And I really appreciated it as we see the horses, you know, they come in, they're like, you know, they're athletes. This is what they do. They know their job. To see them really, their personalities really blossom as they figure out their new jobs and understand their new roles. It's been really fun. Like, it's really, and I'll tell you what, the high class horses, the stakes horses that come in, honest to God, you know, when they step off that trailer, like they have such an air about them, like they know they're a big deal. And we see some really cool horses come through our program, and it's really neat. We require 3 updates. So our adoptions manager, she sends us at least one a week that you're just like, same thing, like crying at, because these people are so in love with these horses and they're so thankful for this opportunity. So I really appreciate those updates. We like to share them on our Facebook page too, just because it's really neat to see these horses that were potentially very successful on the track go on to be just, you know, phenomenal show horses or trail riding horses. It's been really cool.
Sarah, I thought you were going to say cross ties.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. No, that's true. That's totally true. So we get our horses boarding barn broke before they leave our facilities, and it's things that, and again, I come from the sport horse world, so didn't have a whole lot of experience with thoroughbreds. That's what I grew up riding, but they were already retired. You know, these horses have never had fly spray. They don't understand, you know, bottles. They've never had a hose. They've been sponge bathed. So, and the cross ties is the one thing that we absolutely make sure all our horses know how to cross tie before they leave, because that's the first thing you do. You unload it, clip it in the ties, and then you are like, why is it freaking out? I don't understand.
Yeah,
so,
no, I've had the horse fresh off the track, put him on cross ties, didn't even think about it, started wandering away, and thankfully the cross ties had the hay bale twine on him, and you know,
yep.
And they're all bye.
Yeah. I will say, I got a horse off of the track. I've gotten a couple of horses off the track over the years. But I got this horse off of the track from a trainer one time that I thought was the sweetest thing ever. When I went to pick him up, he was so excited to tell me that this horse cross ties, and he made sure it cross ties because he wanted it to thrive as it started its new career. So he went to the trouble of he made that connection and made sure that he started acclimating his horse to that. I think the horse was 11 when it came off of the track. And he was right. That horse cross-tied. He ground-tied.
Wow.
He was intense in other ways, but he was awesome as far as ground manners. And the guy had really done that horse a service.
Yeah. But I think people will also be really surprised to know what off-the-track thoroughbreds don't care about at all. Because when they're on the racetrack, they're exposed to so many things, like big crowds, no problem. Like crazy dog, like the beep beep truck backing up, like bring it on, and like paper bags blowing by, like it's cool. Like, you know, I've seen 1,000 mutual tickets go up in the air at once, but like, you know, a squirrel on the other hand, they're kind of like, what?
Well, most of them trailer really well, which is nice. Yeah. That can be a problem sometimes with some horses, but yeah, it is funny what freaks them out. Plastic bag over. You know,
we have a really good question from April Springfield right now, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. She asks, could you please offer some suggestions for feedings in newly off-the-track thoroughbreds so horses don't experience too much weight loss?
Yeah. Anybody can take it. Yeah, sure.
I mean, I bet we all have good tips on that, but I'm happy to go first. There's a ton of things I'm sure we could all think about. One thing you want to keep in mind is not to feed it the way it was fed at the track, because it's fed at the track based on the calories it's burning, and you are not going to be asking nearly as much of it, so it's not going to burn as many calories. So you don't want to have that high protein, high energy diet like it would at the track, because that'll just give you a hot horse. So you want something that gives them basically cool energy. And every feed company has some kind of product that's like a more high fiber diet, more high calorie dense diet that doesn't give them all of that like high intensity energy. So like one of my biggest tips would be to call your local feed company. They usually have a nutritionist or someone who's got a background in equine nutrition who can consult with you based on your geographical area, what kind of grass you have, how much turnout your horse is getting, that kind of thing. But also like turnout is key too, making sure that horse, if it has access to a lot of great pasture, that's great. And that's going to be good for its diet. It's going to put weight on it, especially this time of year with all this green grass coming up. And then for a horse that I find having a harder time putting weight on, we actually had one of our racehorses come back to the farm for this convenient COVID break that everyone is on. And the horse was just kind of nervous at the track. So this was a convenient time to give her a break. And she just was having a hard time putting a little bit of weight on. So we added a GI support supplement. We used Reline HA, which is a product that a vet hospital here in town, Hagyard, creates, but there's a lot of different things you can use out there, like UlcerGuard, GastroGuard, or great products as well. And I also use rice bran oil or some kind of high fat oil that you can top dress their feed. But again, it's great to work with a nutritionist because then they can look at what's already in your feed and scientifically tell you how to supplement that based on what your horse's age, energy level, use, all that is.
And check their teeth too.
I was going to say that was going to be my thing. That's the number one thing is check their teeth first, because a lot of times they've been at the track and have not had a dental exam done. My horse came off the track and I've had to do his teeth every 6 months for the first couple of years that I had him because they just were growing so fast and he was not putting on weight. He's a cribber too, so that doesn't help matters either. But it took me a long time to figure out exactly what feed program would work for him. And I'd second the rice bran oil. That made a huge difference. I also feed alfalfa pellets and alfalfa cubes. I found that helped and did not make him too much hotter than like a high calorie, high fat food would. But definitely check the teeth. I would definitely second that. I think that's an important part of getting a horse off the track.
Yeah. And like just free choice, like, you know, if you've got a lot of nice free choice hay, you know, depending, again, I love what Jen said about talking to your feed store, like find out what's going to be best for the horse. You tell them what the horse's circumstances are, then, you know, they'll have great recommendations. But free choice hay is always a great thing for horses. I always like putting hay on the ground versus in a hanging hay bag because I don't like how the dust kind of falls down into the horse's nose when they eat from a hay bag. I like how I'm attempting to be a horse right now. Throwback to childhood, everyone.
It looked like horses. Amazing.
Yeah. I'm still genuinely hoping that like one day I'm going to wake up as a sunflower because I figure it's the best of both worlds. But yeah, free choice hay, preferably on the ground or soaked. Soaked alfalfa cubes are always a good call too. Love those. But yeah.
What about you, Sarah? Because Chizzy went through such an amazing transformation when you got him off the track.
He did. So we typically say every horse that leaves New Vocations has what we call a go home packet. And it includes a couple different things. And one of them is basically some information on refeeding, on feeding your OTTB, because what we run into is if we have one thoroughbred that goes to a boarding barn that is primarily, let's say, shorter, stockier quarter horses, and those horses are all fed one scoop twice a day. That's what they get. We sometimes have to work with our adopters to help inform their farm managers that the needs of a thoroughbred, especially a bigger thoroughbred, are particularly different than, you know, a little chubby quarter horse that can get fat on air. Chizzy in particular, I've had really good luck with. I used fish oil from Well Pride. Chizzy had some stifle issues when I first got him, and that Well Pride fish oil in particular is good for stifles. And he he's huge. I mean, he goes almost 1,400 pounds now. He's massive. He was about 1,000 pounds when I got him, just under 1,000 pounds. But at New Vocations, we also actually use that Reline product, Jen, and we have really, really good luck with it. Weight gain, stomach discomfort, such as ulcers. We really, really like that product a lot.
I'm just like, I kind of want to see pictures of you 1,400 pound off the truck.
Oh my God, I'll send it to you. He is massive. I mean, he's huge. He's huge.
I think you have to keep in mind too. I think Sarah, you found this as well, but with my horse and any horse coming off the track at 3 or 4, they are still growing. So I mean, you may get them at 4 and there's 16 hands, but you may have a 17-hand monster on your hands in a year because they're still growing. So you're not only having to feed differently, but you're also feeding this growing horse, and they have a new job, and a lot of times they're in work. So the working with the feed companies, there are plenty of them, and there's lots of nutritionists out there that can help, and definitely no shortage, especially in central Kentucky, of resources. So
for sure. And April, if you have any interest in seeing what we send in our go home packet, you can find me. I'm on the New Vocations website. I'll gladly send it to you if that's helpful at all.
Nice. Before we start to wind down, I really want to go back to something we touched on earlier. We have the TIP championships, the New Vocations All Thoroughbred show, and the Thoroughbred makeover that the Retired Racehorse Project does. Just want to give everybody kind of an update on where those shows stand and whether, what are the deadlines for entering? Is it too late to register, that sort of thing? And we could just go around the room. If you want to start, Kristin, we'll start with you, and you could tell us what the status is on your end.
So right now we're still a go for TIP championships. We have one show in September, one show in October. To qualify for TIP championships, you do have to show at a show with TIP awards from August 1st of last year through July 31st of this year. Obviously, with April and May and part of March kind of out for horse shows, I know there are some people that are going to be struggling a little bit to make that deadline, but we do have what's called a hardship request. So as long as you've been showing your horse during that time period, if you can't get to a TIP show, you can submit that paperwork, and we'll still accept the nomination for TIP championships. And those are due July 15th, so they're a little bit earlier. We're working on finalizing prize lists, getting entry forms online and updated and all of that stuff. So as of right now, we're still planning to go. Entries open in June. So everyone cross your fingers. It'll be a busy weekend in Kentucky if you do go, because it's Derby weekend and Labor Day weekend and TIP championships and the New Vocations show. So very busy time, but should be amazing if everything goes as we all hope it does.
How about you, Jen? How about with the Thoroughbred makeover?
So right now we're still planning to have the Thoroughbred makeover. It's scheduled for the second week in October, and so that's far enough out that hopefully we will still be able to have it. Entries for the makeover usually are taken basically 10 months before, or 11 months before, I guess. So like between December and January is when people typically enter. This year, we are doing something different, and we created a wait list, and we are allowing people to apply for the makeover late. And so for trainers to apply to the makeover, it's based on the trainer, not the horse. The Thoroughbred makeover is a competition for thoroughbreds in their first year of retraining after racing. So we are really cognizant of making sure we get the right trainers to be taking on these horses to compete, because it's definitely not a beginner's task, But so people can email info@retiredracehorseproject.org and ask to be emailed the waitlist application. And our application asks for basically a riding resume. You have to explain what your riding history is. You have to provide several references from people in the industry, professional equestrians. You also have to provide a reference from your veterinarian. So you really look closely at these trainers. They also provide videos of their riding. And then one thing we've been doing to try to figure out kind of if we can go forward with the makeover, obviously we keep it at the Kentucky Horse Park every year. We hold it there. So if the Kentucky Horse Park doesn't allow shows, then obviously that is our answer right there. But I think they hopefully will be allowing shows by then. And so one thing we did the other day, I'd say about 2 weeks ago, we sent out a survey to all of our makeover competitors who are training horses for this year's makeover just to understand what position they're in. So we asked them, are they still able to ride their horses? I know a lot of people, either if they board their horses at a boarding barn, they're not allowed to ride, or they're not allowed to jump. Like they have restrictions like that. And obviously there's no horse shows right now, just like there's no racing. So they're not out showing and preparing the horses that way. So we asked if they're still able to ride, if they have been financially burdened by COVID, if that financial burden has impacted how much they're investing in the horse to prepare it for the makeover, because our surveys in the past have shown on average people invest about $8,000 to $10,000 in preparing their horse for the makeover in a given year. So that's a big chunk of money. We want to make sure people are still financially able to do that. And so we asked a bunch of questions like that and found that a lot of people still are able to work with their horses right now. And if they can start getting out into those show environments and giving them those new experiences and learning opportunities and exposure, that they are confident they still can prepare them adequately for the makeover. We'll probably send another survey like that out in, I'd say, June, probably. And we also need to be cognizant of, like, can our sponsors still support us? Do we still have the money to put on the makeover? Right now we still do, but we all know, who knows in 90 days. But we'll do another survey to basically check in with all of our competitors again to see, are you still now able to be training your horses? Have you gotten them out to shows? Are you feeling prepared to take it to Kentucky for the makeover? Because they came from last year 41 states and 4 provinces, I believe. So they come from everywhere. So we will make a very informed decision on that, and we'll try to make it early so people can plan. If we can't do the makeover this year, we'll have a plan B for these people, whether it's doing a double makeover next year, whether it's infusing opportunities into regional shows. TIP has a ton of shows that they're involved with during the year. Vocations has a good show. So we're trying to weigh our options, but hopefully we'll be putting the makeover on. If not, next year is going to be a blowout.
Well, you could also do we'll give you time to do the sponsor pitch, by the way. We'd be disappointed if sponsors are dropping out at this point. Can't see a better cause.
Before we move on, Jen, I want to apologize to you. There was a point at which I kind of giggled. It was because you said that $8,000 to $10,000 number, and Kristin and Sarah and I just kind of nodded, and Dan was like,
I was like, whoa, that's a lot. That's a lot of money.
All the horse people were like, yeah, no, that sounds right. Also,
more on horse feed than people feed. It's crazy.
Wendy really has a really good question for Kristin, which is, how can we find out what all the tip awards are? There seem to be so many that I had no idea about. I'd like to see if my newest off-the-track thoroughbred could be eligible for some Western awards.
Sure. So we have a lot of awards. I'll divide them into 2 parts for the Western style anyway. So we have awards at horse shows. We approved about 450 horse shows this year. We'll probably be down to about 1,200 by the time all is said and done with COVID. But those shows range from everything from hunters, jumpers, eventing, dressage, Western. We have barrels. We have Western pleasure. So they're all across the country. So there may or may not be one near you. If there is, great. Please support those shows that support the thoroughbreds, and you can go and win some tip ribbons and some prizes. But then we also have the performance awards, and that's our year-end program. And you can go to any show you want and participate in any discipline that you want. And then we give awards in all those categories for horses just off the track. So within the first 3 years, we have special categories for them as well, called the Green OTTB Awards. And those are sponsored by Thoroughbred Charities of America. And those are for horses that raced either 2020, 2019, or 2018. And so then we calculate just their points, try to encourage people that are getting horses right off the track to at least go out and do some stuff with them. And it's very interesting to see that category grows every year, where, you know, the horses just off the track in 2020, they're not doing a lot of shows, but they're at least getting out and doing some things, which is great to see. But our 2-year and 3-year off the track horses, a lot of them are RRP makeover grads, which is awesome. But then you can see the growth of them over the years, which is so cool to see that they started, you know, cross rails. And by the time that they're in their 3rd year, they're up doing, you know, 2-6 hunters, which is really cool that we're able to follow those people and their horses' progress and we're rewarding them all on the way. So those are the two places where you can do some competitions. We also do have Western Pleasure at Tip Championships. So if you qualify in Western Pleasure, you can come and show in Kentucky during the championships.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to blitz through just a couple of more questions. Samantha Smith asks, Kristin, how do you officially retire a registered thoroughbred from racing, and what are the benefits?
You can do that by filling out a retired from racing form, which is available at registry.jockeyclub.com. And that will retire the horse from racing, but it still can be bred and it still can participate in the Thoroughbred Incentive Program. But the best part of that is, even if you have a contract that says the horse can't be raced, sometimes they end up back on the track. If they're retired from racing, that won't happen.
That is a very awesome benefit. Julie Jagow says, did you guys see the article in Smithsonian Magazine about alphabet soup on the cover and old friends? And then she linked to it. So that's another thing I'm doing directly after this.
That was awesome.
That was really cool.
Kristin Bentley has a really big question, a good question for Jen. Performance award participation in 2019 would make one eligible for the 2020. Oh, sorry.
That's me.
Would make one eligible for the 2020 championship, correct?
That is correct. If you do the 2019 Performance Awards, you are automatically eligible for the championships in the discipline that you participated in.
To Sarah, real quick, let's give you a chance to just kind of tell us about the All Thoroughbred show and kind of how things are looking on your end as we head toward that.
Sure. So I just had to comment here. I've been with New Vocations for 6 years, and it's been really cool. People are now specifically looking for horses to do tip, to do the makeover. Like we put the RRP logo on our horses that are eligible, and it's been insane. It's been really, really cool to see. But so our horse show is a little bit different. We're hunter, jumper, equitation, Western, horsemanship, and dressage. We actually added driving last year and trail. So it's been really cool. We really like to highlight, all these different horses and what they do. We do ask that they provide a thoroughbred information sheet, and we pull all kinds of really cool statistics from there. We have war horse classes, which means the horse has won over $100,000 or started over 50 times. And that class is so massive that we've had to split it into two. So we have the horses that have raced over 50 times and the horses who have won over $100,000. But we're super friendly. We're everything from fresh off the track, walk trot classes, all the way up to the 3-6 jumpers. So we try really hard to show the world what these horses can do when they retire from racing. And some of their stories are awesome. We have a little paragraph where we ask them, how did you get your horse? What's unusual about them? And the thing that we, at least our thoroughbred tribe, is always surprised at is a lot of these people have no idea what their horse's racing history is until we require that they record it. And they're like, holy crap, my horse won $500,000. It's from Puerto Rico. It's been really cool because I think, they've always appreciated and loved their horses, but they appreciate the athlete that they are even more when they know their history. So we encourage everybody to come out. Please come out if you're in Kentucky that weekend. If you're not at the Derby, even if you're at the Derby, come out on Sunday. But we really, really love to show the world what they can do.
All right. Let me ask this before we sign off. Did we miss anything? Is there anything essential that we should relay to anyone watching or who might watch this on replay? Anyone who wants to jump in, feel free to jump in if we missed something.
I have something.
Go ahead.
So these three organizations, obviously, we work as hard as we possibly can on behalf of these amazing athletes on not massive budgets, not the same amount is invested in that first couple of years off the track as it is preparing a horse for the Kentucky Derby in September or May or whenever. And so the one thing I would say is if people are, interested in off-track thoroughbreds and love them, get involved with one of these organizations. There's so many ways to get involved with all three of the organizations here, and there's so many others out there. And any of us are more than happy to help you connect with an organization in your geographical area or in your specific area of interest. And it's not just about donating money, a lot of them are nonprofits. So obviously donations help, but you can do things like volunteer at their horse shows or volunteer to write letters on their behalf to their sponsors, telling them how much you appreciate them sponsoring these organizations or their horse shows, or doing a Facebook fundraiser, posting about them on Facebook to spread the word. There's a lot of ways you can do little things that make a big difference. So that's always appreciated, and it's fun to get involved.
That is an excellent, excellent point, Jen. Thank you for that. It is fun. It's so much fun. These horses are the best. Like, I can't say enough about an off-the-track thoroughbred. When you finally commit to getting one, you're a convert for life.
Yeah, it's funny that we're in this. I'm so glad. For people who don't know, like, sort of the way this whole thing materialized. We had the panel and had a discussion with Penelope last week. I was like, Penelope, you got to be involved with this show. I mean, this is your language. These are your people.
Bounce the off-the-track thoroughbred panel.
But seriously, it's an amazing world. And somebody like me who grew up in a city, did not grow up around horses. I've been lucky enough to be exposed to horses through my job. And I still don't have room for a horse anywhere here. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. But there are lots of people like us who maybe don't have the actual space or the means for a horse, but we can still support all these great organizations that we heard from today. So real quick, let's just go around the room and just tell people, starting with you, Kristin, how they can support some of your efforts. And we can go Kristin, Jen, Sarah, and then we'll sign off from there, I promise.
Well, first I have a question for you guys. Are you going to be in town for Derby? And if so, would you like to come watch a horse show?
Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, and yes.
Join the ring with ribbons, and you can put ribbons on the horse. You let us know.
Can I also braid somebody? I love braiding tails. If anybody's at show, I will braid your horse's tail. You do a really good job.
Absolutely. We have a winner's circle. We'll hand you the roses. You can put them over the winners. There we go.
Yep.
As far as tip is concerned, the best thing that we can ask of people is to get out there and talk about how great your thoroughbred is and how, you've got all these extra incentives that you can win if you have a thoroughbred, and just encourage people to give thoroughbreds a chance. Some people have this idea that a thoroughbred can't do Western, or it's not a great jumper, or it can't do hunters. And the best way we can change that perception is to show off all the awesome things that these horses are doing. So that's my tip.
Yeah, I would say, I second that completely. The more people talk about them and post about them and share them with their networks, I mean, it's huge. For us, I would say if people want to get involved, volunteering at the makeover is huge. If you're an equestrian and you want to get involved with taking on a thoroughbred off of the racetrack, we're happy to help you connect with the right entity, whatever that is for your background and your budget and your level of riding. Or if you just want to learn more about it and you're not at the point where you want to take on a thoroughbred of your own, you publish a magazine that's kind of like a user's guide to thoroughbreds after racing. We put that out 4 times a year. It's got great feature articles and how-tos and training tips and backgrounds on different shows and things like that. So that can teach you a lot about it. And then, like I said before, just, find an organization that's doing work that's meaningful to you. It's not about the RRP. I love the RRP. I loved it before I was in this position. I'll love it after. But find whatever is meaningful to you and reach out to them and ask them how you can be involved. And like I said, something as simple as writing thank you notes to a couple of their donors makes a huge difference for them. So there's easy things you can do.
Mm-hmm. And they can find that, by the way, your donors, they can find out who those people are to write notes to at your website, which is?
Ours is retiredracehorseproject.org.
Okay. All right. Sarah, how about you?
So we usually encourage people, if you are looking to adopt a horse anytime in the next 2 years, please fill out an adoption application. If we don't have one right for you right now, we absolutely will. There's always more horses coming in. And we also ask, if you're not in the market for a horse, but you do frequent our Facebook page, which please do, please help us share our horses. Some of the horses that we get are more limited. They might not be able to jump, or they might be companion only or trail ride only. Those horses we have a little bit harder time placing. Not this month, apparently, but we typically do have a little bit harder time. So they're with us just a little bit longer. And we usually need help spreading the word about how awesome those horses are, even if they can't go out and jump Grand Prix.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Thank you to Sarah Coleman, Jen Roytz, Kristin Werner, and of course, Penelope Miller, the one and only, with a couple of appearances from Clark during the course.
The other one?
Sure, bring them all in. There we go.
My old man. He is now very offended.
Well, thank you all for spending about an hour with us tonight. And thank you again to everyone who joined in, asked questions. We will see you next week on Thursday night live. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks so much.